When training your Uma, you have to pick 6 support cards. Let's talk about what support cards are and how they help train your Umas. So in general, support cards can give stat increases, they can give access to skills that your horse couldn't have accessed otherwise, they can make skills just cheaper in general, or they can even give good or bad status effects. An example of a good status effect could be, when you use the Fine Motion SSR card, she can give you access to a status effect called Practice Perfect, which basically decreases the chance of failing a training. An example of getting a good skill from a support card would be Swinging Maestro. Swinging Maestro is a very good skill because it gives you 5.5% recovery on HP on corners, which is excellent. There's only 2 ways to currently get it. The first way is on Super Creek herself. It comes with Super Creek when you awaken her to level 5. The alternative is you can get it on any of your horses. If you run the Super Creek SSR card, it is guaranteed with her events. But before all that, let's just talk about support cards in general. So support cards come in 3 different rarities. They come in SSR, SR, and R. Now, don't fall into the rabbit hole of, SSR is always better than SR. There have been plenty of cases where an SR card is better than an SSR card. It will make it easier to explain why an SR may be better than an SSR once we go over the mechanics of a support card. There are 2 things that can be leveled on a support card. So the first one is called its uncapped level. Basically, uncapped level is how many dupes of the card you get. As you can see on the cards up here, they have these little diamonds, and currently there's nothing filled in these diamonds. That's because I don't own any duplicates of these cards. And as you can see here, these cards have diamonds filled in. That means I own duplicates of these cards. So in general, you can have up to 4 duplicates of a support card, and each duplicate is 1 uncap or 1 diamond. Anything past 5 dupes of a card, you can convert them into something called horseshoes. Horseshoes can be used to buy a variety of things, but mainly just like an SR guaranteed ticket or a ticket to pull on the horse or card banner. And then we have the card's level. So the card's level can affect a variety of things, mainly the type of stat increases and support effects a card can give you. We'll talk about support effects in a little bit. Now this part is a little important for the cards. This is where the rarity of the card, the level of the card, and the uncapping of the card sort of intertwine. An SSR card with no duplicates has a max level of 30. If you have an SR with no duplicates, that's a max level of 25, and an R card with no duplicates has a max level of 20. However, each duplicate card you get will give you an increase to 5 levels of your maximum level cap. So if you have an SSR with max number of duplicates, then the max level is 50. For an SR, it is 45, and for an R, it is 40. So that's one of the reasons why duplicates are important, because they can help increase your maximum level. So there are 7 different types of support card. We have speed, stamina, power, guts, wit, friend, and group. So the ones that resemble a stat will be ones that will help increase that stat specific training when it's being trained in that stat. So for example, my special week card is a speed card. So when she's being trained in the speed category, she'll help increase that. Friend cards are a little different, and what they do is usually they're sort of a scenario linked card, meaning they are linked to the specific type of training you're doing. For example, Aoi is linked to the URA scenario. So there are many things she can do. So during the URA scenario, she can give extra skills and stats. In addition, friend cards can unlock something called dating, which when you do your recreation, instead of just like doing the recreation by itself, you can actually do it with the friend card. And that's sort of important because not only will it help give you a mood up, it can give you other things such as energy up, it can give you stats up. It just depends on the type of friend card you're running. I personally think that running friend cards can be important because they give a lot of good skill points, stats, skills in general for the scenario, and it's only for that scenario, so they're pretty strong in that aspect. So I usually try to run 1 friend card in most of my builds. Then we lastly have group cards. Now group cards are not out yet because they will come out in the next scenario. We are currently only have the Yore scenario. The next scenario is Aoharu. To give a general idea, group cards are similar to friend cards in that, the skills, the stats, the dating, etc. But they have a bit extra to it. I'm not going to explain it right now because the bit extra can be a little complicated. I'll try to save it for when we get closer to the next scenario. To understand how a support card affects your stat gains, let's talk about how stat gains are calculated in general. The first part is the base stat gain, so just literally just training the horse, what can that give you? And that can scale with the level of the facility or the training. So usually if you train a horse in a specific stat enough, the president comes up and actually increases the stat gain for you through increasing the level of the facility. And then there's the character's stat bonus. So each character has an innate stat bonus. That stat bonus as an additive is 30%. And that 30% can be distributed among the different stats. So for example, Ogre Cap has a 20% increase to speed and a 10% to power. It could be like Agnes Digital, who is going to be released eventually. She has an 8% stat gain to speed, 8% to stamina, 7% to power, and 7% to wit. There are some horses where they'll just have like the straight 30% increase in one stat. For example, Neo Universe will be eventually released, has a 30% stat bonus to wit. Next, we have the number of support cards that show up in that training. So if you like click a certain training and a bunch of support cards on the top right show up, each one will increase your training by 5%. And the support card's training specialty does not matter. So if I am training in speed, let's say, and the cards that show up are like wit, stamina, guts, whatever, they will still increase the initial stat gain by 5% for that training. Then we have motivation or mood. So when they're in the best mood, they'll give a 20% increase to stat training. If they're in a good mood, they'll have 10%, neutral mood 0%, everything under that, bad is negative 10%, and terrible is negative 20%. Before we could talk about friendship multiplier, let's just quickly talk about what friendship is. Basically, what friendship is when you're training your horse, you're going to see the support card in the top right will have a bar under it. It'll be not filled, and then it'll go from blue, green, orange to yellow. That is your friendship gauge. Every time you do a training and that friendship card shows up, that will increase the gauge by 5. And so when your friendship hits orange level, you have access to something called a rainbow training. And a rainbow training usually procs when the support card shows up in its specialty. So for example, if I have a speed support card and it has orange friendship at least, and it shows up in the speed category, then it will proc a rainbow training. This is where your friendship multiplier kicks in. So when you have that rainbow training, there will be some type of multiplier to increase the amount of stats you get. This is dictated by the support card itself. And then just in general, which we're gonna talk about, is support card effects. They can help increase your stat gains. So there are a few basic parts of a support card. There are the support's effects and its unique perks. It's the hints from the support card, the skills from the events generated by the support card, and then the events in general from a support card. So now let's talk about support effects. So if you want to see your support effects for a card, you just have to click into it and then click support effects, and you'll see a list of all of them. So this is a list of support effects a card can have. Now, there's never going to be one card with all of these support effects on it. It's going to be a different amalgamation of these effects. Let's first start off with friendship. So the way initial friendship up works basically is instead of your friendship bar being completely empty, you'll start off with some sort of friendship in there. Friendship bonus is just the multiplicative increase to your stats when you have a rainbow training. So let's say you have 2 rainbows in one training, and let's say those cards give a 20% increase each, then it's going to be 1.2 times 1.2 or a 1.44 increase to your stats for that training. Specialty priority is just the percentage chance a card shows up in its specialty. So for example, if you have a speed card, it's the percentage chance the card shows up in the speed category. So the base chance of a card showing up in its specialty is 18%. So if for, let's say, the card says, oh, specialty multiplier 50, that means it's going to increase that 18% by 50. So you would do 18 times 1.5, which is 27% chance. So mood or motivational effect just increases the base increase that you receive from your mood or motivation. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you are in the best mood, that means already you have a 20% increase to your stats. And then let's say the card you have has a 20% motivation or mood effect. That doesn't mean now your stats are increased by 1.4 or 40%. It just means that the 20% gets increased by 20%. So you would take your base stat of the 20% increase from the best mood and multiply it by 1.2, and now you're at 24%. So now your stat increase is 24%, not 40%. In order to talk about the next two, let's go over what a hint is. So basically, when you are training your horse, what happens is sometimes a support card will pop up and it will have a little exclamation point. When you click the training for that, the hint pops. Now, when a hint activates, there are two things that occurs. Either A, your horse will get some stats and skill points, or B, your horse will get a hint towards a skill. A hint towards a skill just makes the skill cheaper to buy with skill points. The more hints on a skill, the cheaper it will be. So hint level is just basically the number of hints a horse can give on each skill. And then hint frequency is the percentage chance of a hint occurring. The base chance for a hint to occur is 7.5% chance. And then you just take whatever the hint frequency is and multiply it by that to get your increase to hint frequency. So for example, if you have a card that says 20% increase for hint frequency, then you would do 7.5 times 1.2, and now the hint frequency is 9%. Stat bonus just increases the stat gain when training together. So for example, if the card says power bonus 1, that means the base stat for power will be increased by 1. And this is before any multipliers are applied. Now, this only works when the training would actually yield an increase to that stat. For example, let's say you're training in speed, you have a card that pops up that has stamina up 1, you're not going to see any stat gain in stamina. That's because when you train in speed, you're only ever going to increase speed and power. But if the card showed up had power up 1, then there would be a 1 increase to power. Initial stat bonus just basically increases the initial stat when beginning a career playthrough. So for example, if it says initial stamina 35, it'll give you 35 extra points of stamina when the career begins. That's it, nowhere else. Training effectiveness applies a multiplier to the stats gained that turn when training with that support card, and it can happen even when a support is not in its specialty. So let's say you're training power, and a speed card pops up there, you will still get the training effectiveness bonus from training in power with that speed card. And also the effects are additive. So for example, if you have two 10% boosts, that means you'll have a 20% effectiveness or 20% increase to your stats. Race bonus will give an increase to the random stat gain and the skill points gained from doing a race. So in general, OP races will give a +5 to a random stat and will give you +30 skill points. G2 and G3 races will give you +8 to a random stat and +35 skill points. And a G1 will give you +10 to a random stat and +45 skill points. So let's say you have a race bonus of 10% and you do a G1 race. That means instead of getting +10 to a random stat, you'll get +10 times 1.1 or 11 to a random stat. And then the increase to your skill points would be 45 times 1.1, which is 49.5. And these bonuses are additive towards each other. So let's say you have two cards and each have a race bonus of 5%. Then instead of giving 5% each, it'll give an additive 10% to the race bonus. Fan bonus just increases the amount of fans gained from a race. Failure protection decreases the probability of failure when training together. Energy cost reduction decreases energy consumed when training together. The next two have to do with something called events that support cards can proc. I will go over what events are literally right after we finish support card effects. Event effectiveness increases stat gain from the support card's event. Event recovery increases energy recovery from the support card's event. And skill point bonus increases skill points gained when training together. Now let's talk about events. Events can occur from support cards. They're random and they can proc whenever throughout the training. Now there are two different types of events. There are chain events, which will always happen. You will always have your chain events proc. For SSRs, they have 3 chain events that go in order. For SR cards, there are 2 chain events that go in order, and Rs do not have any chain events. And then we have random events that can occur but don't always occur. So support card events are important because they can give you stats, they can give you skill points, they can give you skill hints, they can affect your motivation to either go up or down, they can give you good or bad status effects, they can mess with your friendship with the card by either increasing or decreasing it, it can increase or decrease the energy you have, increase or decrease the maximum energy you have, and it can also end the chain of events early. So for example, the SSR, Say in Sky card, for the first event in the chain, if you select the wrong option, it can actually stop the chain, meaning the other two events will not proc in the chain. And then finally, we have skills from hints and skills from events. So basically, each support card comes with some skills that if you trigger a hint, you'll be able to get access to or get it at a lower cost. And then we have skills from events that are either guaranteed because they come from chain events, or skills that are not guaranteed because they come from the random events. Now, one thing to note is the effects from your support effects can actually increase with your card's level. So, the higher the card level, the higher the effects. So for example, I'm showing a level 30 card, and these are the effects. And as you can see, also some of them are not even unlocked. But if the card is level 50, then all the effects are unlocked and some of them are actually increased. So that's why sometimes an SR might be better than an SSR. So for example, if you don't have any dupes or any levels really into one of your SSR cards, but your SR card is maxed out, that SR card is most likely going to give you more bang for your buck. Thank you so much for watching my video on support cards. I'm gonna do a support card video in the future that basically talks about what makes a support card good in terms of its skills, its support effects, etc. So in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Good luck raising your Umas. I hope you have fun.